from the Bendigo IPTv. In keeping with recent weeks and months, we're again introducing a candidate, this time Thomas Prince, for the forthcoming council elections in the Whipstick Ward. Welcome, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
Not a problem. You're a young gun, Thomas. What age are you? Tell us a bit about yourself and where you come from, if you've always been in Bendigo and that sort of thing.
Okay, well, I'm now 27. Some people might have some information saying I'm 26.
Well, that's young gun for me.
It is. That change has happened last week, so I'm now 27. I've grown up in Bendigo my whole life. I did part of a university degree here. I've worked here in various different jobs and been involved in different community groups. But Bendigo, born and bred, been here my whole life.
When I was 26, 27, I had no inclination whatsoever to become a councillor. Where did that come from? Is it family driven? Have you always had that sort of feeling that you wanted to take or participate in public life? Where did your desire to run for council come from?
Well, it probably stems from the way I was brought up. We were always involved in sporting groups, the local church. I was involved with the kids programs and the youth programs. Been in them as one of the members, but then also leading them. And so for me, it's always been about contributing back, helping people to become better people. So as life went on, I'd find different avenues. People say, you're young, why don't you travel? And I always said, no, I've got my commitments. That's where my passion lies, so I'll keep doing that. And so it's just stemmed from the fulfilment of helping others.
So when you look at Bendigo, the city of Greater Bendigo, I've lived in a few different regional cities in Bendigo, in Victoria rather, and it's a beautiful city. But when you look at it now, why do you think that you can contribute something to council?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is bringing the council back to the people. I think everyone can acknowledge that there seems to be this big gap between the councillors and the officers and the people, whether that's through communication and things like that. But I see I can bring great benefit to the city in the way I work with people and having that opportunity to bring it back to people. And part of that's representation. We want a council, a bunch of councillors that fully represent the people of Bendigo. Youth is a very relevant topic in Bendigo, and we don't have a young person that represents that. So I think I can help represent Bendigo in that way. And also the fact that, we've got a council full of 60-year-olds.
Hey, settle, I'm 62.
I didn't say there was anything wrong with that, because we need to have that contribution from that side of things. And they've all either businessmen or people that have good foundations, are well supported financially.
But not that youth balance as you're concerned.
No, so I think my benefit is not only am I young, but I'm a low income earner. I have daily struggles with money. I'm lucky enough I don't value money. The money that I have, I use very efficiently and in the right way. But for me, money isn't a priority in the way I spend myself. So I can also relate to, the regular Joe Blow that's down the street that.
Well, you certainly relate to me because there's something else we've got something in common on, the low income. Thomas, with council then currently, all right, we've established, and you're quite right, the age groups that are represented around the council table are certainly much older than you on average. What things are those councillors, or what have they been overlooking in terms of youth? What are the key 2 or 3 things that you think need to happen in this city to benefit youth and that represent those young people?
Well, the biggest thing is getting the youth involved. If we talk about the Hargraves Mall space, and it's just an example, but whenever we talk about youth issues, we go to the leaders in our community, and most often they're the older people. Yep. And we listen to them, and they tell us the way things are, the way things should be. I went to a council meeting where they looked to make movements and recommendations involving the Victoria Police with the Hargraves Mall. And I heard a bunch of 60-year-olds saying, this is what youth need. This is what youth need.
Gee, that's an interesting spin on it. So yeah, that you've seen it that way. It never occurs to me.
Yeah, and it's not to say some of these opinions were valid, but But I sat in the gallery and just shook my head, and some of the views were completely out of touch with people my age. I'm not saying that it would be out of touch with 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, but I felt it was really out of touch. And the biggest problem is that they're not involving the youth in the problem. And it goes back to the communication with the people, that if there's an issue, you should be connecting with the people that it's directly affecting.
Well, reflecting their views, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
and bringing that back to the council table.
Well, we've had a range of divisive issues. The mosque, for one. The Aquatic Centre is another one that has created a lot of disharmony around council, and a lot of discussion, and certainly even putting Bendigo in the national eye. Where do you have an issue with either of those things, or where do you stand on those things, or is it sort of done and dusted and you're moving forward? Well,
they're hard ones to tell. In regards to the mosques and things like that, it comes down to a planning issue. You know, if you want my personal opinion, I'm happy to speak in a personal forum with you on it. But as a councillor, it comes down to planning issues and planning matters, and the requirements and what the mosque proponents have put forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not privy to all the information the councillors are, so I can't make a call on that. I have my suspicions on which way I'd go, but to say one way or another would be irresponsible.
Well, I mentioned the Aquatic Centre as well, because there's a lot of money, but a lot of government money from the outside government, outside local government coming into it as well. But there's always been that emphasis on arts and culture, and even to some extent tourism, and some criticism suggesting that perhaps, other areas have been neglected, footpaths, the rubbish, recycling, things like that. Are there key areas there that concern you, like, for example, in the environmental area with waste management? Are those issues that are important to a bloke your age, who I'm guessing probably hasn't got a house churning out a whole lot of rubbish and that sort of thing?
Yeah, whether they're relevant to someone my age, I think a lot of people my age aren't really considering these kind of issues. If it wasn't for my passion for Bendigo, I probably wouldn't be in this realm.
Yeah.
So, but I certainly identify with how we're dealing with the waste. I recognise that dealing with our green waste is a good thing. I think a lot of people recognise the processes behind how we've installed that was probably where the breakdown was. But the biggest problem with it is that it was brought in to help alleviate the pressure around the Eagle Hawk landfill site. Yeah. When in reality, yes, it's alleviating it, but it's actually just delaying the inevitable. The site's going to fill up, and we still don't have a solution to dealing with this waste. So I've got that concern that here's this perception of fixing a problem that hasn't actually been fixed.
Have you heard there are a couple of councillors that have put forward the incinerator idea, where you can incinerate a lot of the hard rubbish to the point, I think they're talking something like 90+% to get rid of it. Have you had a look at that? I'm just looking for an example, I guess, Thomas, of how you might view an issue that's probably, well, not probably, will inevitably come before a council that you would be part of should you be successful.
Great question, great example with the incinerator. The big thing is we don't want to use the word incinerator. Firstly, we've got to get the people on side with issues like this. Incinerator is the incorrect term.
Sounds pretty ugly.
That's the 70s, 80s, you're pumping bad stuff into the air. The minute you use that, no one wants to support that idea. If we talk waste to energy plant, then you've got me on board.
I like to start.
So much like a lot of the issues, I'm not going to pretend I have the answers or I have the right ideas. My big thing is identifying where we need to fix things, and let's go find out. And so this was one of the perfect examples. I found out that we had someone in Juniton who was involved with waste to energy plants in France, in Monte Carlo. So I thought, let's find out more, let's go speak to him. You mentioned 90% of the waste. He can confirm that it will deal with 100% of the waste. The gases that it pumps back into the air is better than what we currently have around us. And the 10% that might be alluded to, that still gets reused and repurposed. So it actually deals with 100% of what's taken there. And it's also looking at creating energy. So that helps alleviate pressure because the council's got this form of income coming in. It also, it's kind of like a silt or a soot. At the very end of it, that gets put back into road grading.
Well, you've had a damn good look at it anyway.
Yeah. Well, you have to. You have to have that understanding, and that's probably around that issue. One of my frustrations is they've made movement on whether they'll investigate that or not, and decided not to. And I feel probably without that investigation and understanding, and now I think you'll see, I think it's 6 or 7 councils in and around the city of Greater Bendigo that are actually applied for grants and achieved them to start looking at a waste to energy.
No, look, I can't disagree with that, and I think the idea of, well, we said, Keith and I said at the time when this came up, the idea of investigating would surely be a fairly obvious thing to pursue, in the interest, as you said, of finding what the facts are and then communicating them back to the public. We've had a number of candidates, probably more so in my memory anyway, and I haven't taken enormous interest in every council election over the last 40 years either. But this time round, it seems to me that we have more blocks. So you've got a green block. Some people would suggest that you've got people who have sort of, represent maybe the anti-mosque or the pro-mosque groups as well. How important is that to you? And are you party to some sort of a faction, or have you formed an alliance? No,
I'm not. I don't believe in the preference idea. I try and stay positive in everything I do. Yes, we can acknowledge our downfalls and our mistakes, but we focus on learning from them and moving forward. So I do identify that there seems to be this voting block across all 3 wards that are based around people who are very critical of the previous council. Yes, we acknowledge that there are issues, but the way to move forward is not staring back and focusing our agendas on that.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I'd rather move forward in a positive direction because it's the best way to move forward.
Well, I'm sitting here looking in, I guess, from outside, and you're out there on the street shaking hands, no doubt, knocking on doors and running into people at forums and things. I guess two-part question. One, what sort of a vibe are you getting in terms of the people you're meeting in relation to your performance and your likelihood of winning a seat at council? And the other thing is, make a prediction, if you would, based on those experiences, of how much change will we see, do you think, in terms of the council that's sitting there now? Will we have 50% new councillors? We've got 3 that are riding off anyway. What would be your prediction, Thomas, as to what the new council will look like, and what sort of a vibe are you getting in terms of telling you whether you'll be part of it or not?
Well, I'll correct your first question a little bit. Yes, I'm doing the typical shaking hands, letterbox drops and things like that.
Kissing babies?
If they're there. But that's not really my focus in the campaign. I want people to identify what I can do if I get on council. So that's what my campaign's based on. It's not about chasing votes, it's about making a difference. So you might catch me in front of some public centres, but you're more often going to catch me in the community helping people, whether it's the neighbourhood project, a bunch of guys, skateboarders that are trying to do a good thing there, with the Gornong community group, Woodvale. My campaign's based around helping others, because if I don't get in, guess what? I'm going to continue advocating for the community, helping them. So getting in is a great benefit. Now the feedback, it's great, which of course is what you'll get when you're helping others. It's very exciting. It's not just positive, but everyone's pretty excited for me. Kind of in the sense that they can feel the changes coming through. So hopefully that is what is achieved. As far as...
Like, make a prediction about the current council we got, will we have 50% new councillors, or what do you think?
Someone referred to it as a bit of a chook raffle, I think, this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a lot of the incumbents stay on. And that's in reference to simply with how many candidates we've got. It makes the ballpark look pretty even. So we could have a lot stay on. We could have a completely new, fresh council on. I believe we'll roughly have about the 50-50 change. I do acknowledge that having experience on there is important. You don't want a whole new crew on that are just a bit lost. So we do want some to stay on. The question is are they the ones that we want to stay on? Are they not? But I think 50%. I think the big question will be the female representation on there. You know, in the Lockwood ward has 12 people standing, only 3 females. That's a bit disappointing. Yeah, and that's roughly what you're looking at across all the wards. Are we going to have 1/3 female representation? Hopefully it'd be more than that. But in the end, I guess it comes down to the opinions, not the sexuality. So, but yeah, roughly the 50%, I think.
All right, Thomas. Well, it's been fascinating to meet someone of your age, and it's fantastic that someone of your age has the level of motivation and I guess enthusiasm to be bothered wanting to make a difference. I mean, you know, it'd be great if there was more like that. So congratulations to you for putting your hand up and having a crack at something like this. Good luck with the campaign. And we're not far away now from, well, a lot of votes have already been cast, of course. People already put them in. So we'll look forward to perhaps catching up with you down the track and seeing how things turned out. That
sounds good, Dennis. And if I'm not in, I'd be more than happy to come in either way.
All right, not a worry, Thomas. Thanks again for taking the time today, and we'll look forward to seeing how you go. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to catching you next week as well.